May 27, 1942. A hairpin turn in Prague. Two Czech resistance fighters step from the shadows. One raises a Sten gun, pulls the trigger, click. The gun jams. Reinhard Heydrich, architect of the Holocaust, the Butcher of Prague, stands up in his open Mercedes, reaches for his pistol. The second assassin throws a grenade. The blast tears through the vehicle. 8 days later, Heydrich dies from sepsis. Hitler orders the village of Lidice erased from existence. 173 men executed. 81 children gassed. But Heydrich's 4 children survive the war. They inherit a fortune built on stolen Jewish property and slave labor. And their mother spends 40 years denying the Holocaust while collecting a Nazi general's pension from the German government. This is what happened to the family of a monster. Welcome to History of World War II. Hit subscribe, you need to hear what comes next. To understand what happened to the children, you first need to understand who their father was. Reinhard Heydrich wasn't just another Nazi officer. He was something worse, something colder. January 20th, 1942. A villa on the shore of Lake Wannsee, Berlin. 15 Nazi officials gather for a 90-minute meeting. Heydrich chairs the conference. On the table, a document titled The Final Solution to the Jewish Question. He's calm, methodical. He outlines the plan to murder 11 million European Jews. He discusses logistics train schedules, gas chamber capacity, body disposal methods the way other men discuss quarterly earnings. No rage, no ideology. Just bureaucratic efficiency applied to industrial murder. That was Heydrich, the technocrat of genocide. By 1942, he's one of the most powerful men in Nazi Germany, second only to Heinrich Himmler in the SS hierarchy. He runs the Reich Security Main Office controlling the Gestapo, the SD Intelligence Service, the Criminal Police. And since September 1941, he's been acting Reich Protector of Bohemia and Moravia, the Nazi ruler of occupied Czech lands. The Czechs call him the Butcher of Prague. Public hangings in the streets, mass arrests, terror as deliberate policy. But at home, he's different. At home, at the castle confiscated from Jewish refugees, he's a father. He plays with his children. He reads them bedtime stories. He shows affection. This split-loving father, architect of mass murder, will haunt his children for the rest of their lives, because in May 1942, everything changes. The Butcher of Prague is about to be hunted. The Czech government in exile in London has a problem. Nazi occupation is crushing Czech resistance. Morale is collapsing. They need a victory. Something dramatic. Something that shows the world Czechs are still fighting. I target Reinhard Heydrich. British intelligence trains to Czech paratroopers, Jan Kubas and Joseph Gabke. They're dropped into occupied Czechoslovakia in December 1941. For 5 months, they plan. They watch. They wait. Heydrich's routine creates a vulnerability. Every morning, he commutes from his castle to Prague castle seat of the occupation government. Same route, predictable timing, minimal security. His arrogance is stunning. He travels in an open Mercedes without bodyguards. He believes himself untouchable. May 27, 1942. 10:30 a.m. The assassins wait at a hairpin turn in Prague's Holocaust district. Heydrich's Mercedes slows for the curve. Gabke steps into the road, raises his Sten submachine gun. This is the moment. One burst will cut down the Butcher of Prague. He pulls the trigger. Nothing. The gun jams. For 3 seconds, time stops. Heydrich stands up in the open car, reaching for his pistol. The driver accelerates. Gabke is frozen, his weapon useless. Then Jan Kubas acts. He throws a modified anti-tank grenade at the moving vehicle. The explosion is catastrophic. Shrapnel, upholstery fragments, and spring wire from the car seat embed deep in Heydrich's body. The blast tears through his spleen, his diaphragm, his ribs. Heydrich collapses. Blood pools on the street. The assassins escape on bicycles through the chaos. Heydrich is rushed to Bulovka Hospital. He survives emergency surgery. Hitler sends his personal physician. The best doctors in Germany work to save him. For 8 days, he fights, but sepsis is spreading through his bloodstream. The wound fragments were contaminated. Infection overwhelms him. June 4, 1942, 4:30 a.m. Reinhard Heydrich dies. He's 38 years old. At their castle 15 miles north of Prague, his wife Lina receives the news. She's 30 years old, pregnant with their 4th child, and suddenly a widow. Her children don't fully understand yet. Klaus is 9, Heider is 7, Silke is 3. They know their father is important. They know soldiers salute him. They don't know he's the architect of genocide. What happens next will be one of the most horrific war crimes in European history. And these children will spend their entire lives in its shadow. Should children inherit their parents' sins? Comment below. Adolf Hitler is enraged. A high-ranking Nazi official assassinated in broad daylight. The first successful Allied attack on Nazi leadership. This cannot stand. He demands vengeance. Not just a vengeance. He wants Czechs to understand what happens when you kill a German officer. Nazi intelligence fabricates evidence linking the assassination to 2 Czech villages, Lidice and Lidice. The evidence is false. The villages had nothing to do with the attack. Hitler doesn't care. He orders both communities obliterated. Erased from the earth are his exact words. June 9, 1942. Just 5 days after Heydrich's death, German forces surround Lidice, a mining village of about 500 people. Ordinary families, miners, farmers, children walking to school. The Germans separate the population. Men and boys over age 14 on one side, women and children on the other. 173 males, lined up against a barn wall in groups of 10. What happens next takes 6 hours. Execution by firing squad, methodical, systematic. All 173 shot. The bodies are dumped in a mass grave. The women 184 total watch their husbands and sons murdered. Then they're loaded onto trucks, sent to Ravensbrück concentration camp. Most survive the war, but they return to nothing. The children face something worse. 105 children. Ages 1 to 16. Nazi racial experts examine them like livestock. Measuring skulls. Checking hair and eye color. 17 are selected blonde, blue-eyed, young enough to forget their Czech identity. They're sent to SS families in Germany to be raised as Germans. New names, new language, new families. The remaining 81 children deemed unsuitable for Germanization are loaded into trucks. Told they're going to a new camp. They're driven to Chelmno extermination camp, murdered in mobile gas vans. The youngest is 1 year old. The oldest is 16. Then the village itself is destroyed. Every building burned, every structure dynamited. Bulldozers flatten what remains. The ground is plowed. Grain is planted over the earth where houses once stood. Lidice is erased from German maps. The name becomes forbidden. As far as the Nazis are concerned, the village never existed. Lidice meets the same fate. 33 people murdered, village destroyed. At least 1,300 Czechs die in the broader reprisals. And Operation Reinhardt, the code name for establishing Treblinka. Sobibor and Belkek death camps is named in Heydrich's honor, accelerating the genocide he designed. While Czechoslovakia burns, Heydrich's children live in luxury paid for by the blood their father spilled. June 9, 1942. Berlin. The same day Lidice is being destroyed. Adolf Hitler orders the most elaborate state funeral ever held for a Nazi official. Thousands attend. The ceremony lasts hours. Heinrich Himmler delivers the eulogy. He calls Heydrich irreplaceable. Hitler personally places Heydrich's decorations on a funeral pillow, the highest honors Nazi Germany can bestow. Among the mourners, 2 young boys in formal dress. Klaus and Reinhard Heydrich, ages 9 and 7, stand beside their grieving mother, Lina. They're surrounded by the most powerful men in Nazi Germany. SS officers, Gestapo chiefs, the architects of the Holocaust, paying respects to one of their own. The boys don't understand yet. To them, this is their father's funeral. Sad, confusing, overwhelming. They don't know about Wannsee. They don't know about Lidice. They don't know their last name will become synonymous with evil. Think about that for a moment. 9 years old. 7 years old, standing at your father's state funeral. Everyone tells you he was a hero, a great man. Years later, you learn the truth, that he designed genocide, that his death triggered mass murder, that millions of people wish he'd never been born. How do you process that? How do you reconcile the father you remember with the monster history records? Hit that like button if this story is different than you expected. Hitler shows unexpected generosity to the widow Heydrich. He gifts the family Penensk-Brezhny, called Jungfernbrechen in German, a 32-room castle. Rural Bohemia, sprawling grounds, servants' quarters. Here's what Hitler does unmention in his official decree. The castle was confiscated from Ferdinand Bloch-Bauer, a Jewish sugar magnate who fled to Switzerland in 1938 when the Nazis annexed Czechoslovakia. Everything in the castle furniture, artwork, silverware was stolen from a Jewish family who barely escaped with their lives. And Heinrich Himmler, who assumes legal guardianship of Lina, arranges for approximately 30 Jewish forced laborers to work the estate. Gardeners maintaining the grounds, cooks preparing meals, maids cleaning rooms, unpaid, abused. Prisoners. According to post-war testimony from survivors, Lina Heydrich physically beat these workers, slapping, hitting with objects, screaming abuse. She continued the brutality her husband had institutionalized. The Heydrich children grow up in this stolen castle of forced labor. Klaus, age 9, Heider, age 7, Silke, age 3, play on grounds maintained by Jewish prisoners. They eat meals prepared by Jewish cooks. They sleep in rooms cleaned by Jewish maids. July 23, 1942. 6 weeks after Reinhard's death, Lina gives birth to their 4th child, a daughter. She names her Marte. This baby will never know her father except through photographs and stories. She'll be raised entirely on mythology, the carefully constructed narrative Lina creates about Reinhard as a loving family man who is simply doing his job. Life at the castle seems peaceful. The children play. Lina manages the estate. They want for nothing while Europe burns and millions die in the camps her husband helped create. October 24, 1943. Tragedy strikes sudden, random, having nothing to do with war. Klaus and Heider are cycling in the castle courtyard. The gates to the street stand open. 10-year-old Klaus rides out onto the road. A small truck carrying a local football team back from a match comes around the corner. The driver doesn't see Klaus until too late. The impact kills Klaus almost instantly. He dies that afternoon from massive internal injuries. The loss devastates Lina. Of all the horrors surrounding them, the war, the reprisals, the Holocaust, this random accident feels especially cruel. She will later say it was the hardest moment of her life. Harder even than losing Reinhard. But the war is closing in, and soon the family will have to run. Spring 1945. The Third Reich is collapsing. Allied armies advance from the west. The Red Army closes from the east. And in Czechoslovakia, Czech partisans are hunting Nazi collaborators. Lina Heydrich knows what's coming. She's the widow of the Butcher of Prague. Her husband's name is synonymous with terror. Czech partisans won't offer trials. They'll offer summary execution. She makes desperate preparations in the final chaotic weeks of the war. She entrusts her two eldest surviving children, 12-year-old Heider and 6-year-old Silke, to near strangers. People she barely knows but believes can get them safely back to Germany. It's a massive gamble, trusting your children to strangers while a war collapses around you. But she has no choice. Remarkably, it works. The children arrive safely at their grandparents' home on the island of Femron, in the Baltic Sea where Lina herself was born. Lina takes 3-year-old Marte and makes the journey across a collapsing Germany. They travel in a makeshift caravan, sleeping in barns, begging for food, hiding their identity, moving through Soviet-occupied territory with forged papers. Every checkpoint is terror. If someone recognizes the name Heydrich, they're dead. For weeks, they stop at the home of Frieda Wolf, another Nazi widow in Rottweil. Then they continue north. May 8, 1945. Germany surrenders unconditionally. By late May, the Heydrich family has reassembled on Femron, 3 children. 1 widow, alive, together, and far from the immediate vengeance of Czech partisans. The island provides isolation. Everyone locally knows who they are, but they're safe from mob justice. Lina faces an uncertain future, no income, 3 children to support, and a name that will forever be associated with genocide. What happens next will shock you. Because instead of facing justice, Lina Heydrich will spend the next 40 years living comfortably on a Nazi pension while denying the Holocaust ever happened. Allied occupation forces established denazification tribunals across Germany. Every adult German is classified based on their Nazi involvement. 5 categories: major offenders, offenders, lesser offenders, followers, exonerated. Lina Heydrich faces potential prosecution in 2 countries. In Czechoslovakia, the Supreme Court tries her in absentia for war crimes, specifically for her documented abuse of Jewish forced laborers at the castle. She's sentenced to life imprisonment. She never serves a single day. She remains in Germany. The Czechs can't extradite her without West German cooperation. The Germans refuse. In West Germany's denazification proceedings, she's classified as Mittelger follower, the lowest category of offender. This classification indicates nominal Nazi Party membership without evidence of active criminal involvement. Despite joining the party in 1929, despite marrying one of the Holocaust's architects, despite physically abusing Jewish prisoners. The penalty, a fine of 75 Deutschmarks, about $18 US dollars in 1945, no imprisonment, no restrictions, no consequences. The tribunal either believes Lina's claims of ignorance or simply chooses not to investigate thoroughly. Post-war Germany is inconsistent in its justice. Many Nazis are quietly reintegrated. The country needs to rebuild. Lina is officially cleared. She reclaims her property on Femron, which British forces had temporarily confiscated. But she faces a financial problem. No income, no job. A widow with 3 children. As the widow of a high-ranking SS officer killed in service, she believes herself entitled to a state pension. Under German law, widows of soldiers killed in action receive substantial benefits. Lina applies. The West German government declines. Officials cite Reinhard Heydrich's central role in the Holocaust. They argue no one who profited from genocide should receive government benefits. Lina refuses to accept this decision. She hires lawyers. She sues. Between 1956 and 1959, she fights a legal battle that will outrage the world and reveal how broken post-war justice really is. Her argument, pension entitlement, derives from her husband's death in service, not his political actions. Under German law, widows have statutory rights regardless of what their husbands did. A lower court rules in her favor. The judges acknowledge Reinhard's criminal responsibility, but prioritize statutory law over moral considerations. The government appeals. The case climbs through the judicial system. It makes headlines, generates outrage. Critics point out the obscenity. Jewish widows receive no compensation. Holocaust survivors struggle in poverty. Yet here's the widow of a mass murderer claiming government benefits. The Federal Social Court, Germany's highest court for social insurance case, confirms the lower court ruling. Lina wins. she's declared entitled to a pension equivalent to that of a retired minister-president. Essentially, the pension of a German general killed in action, substantial, comfortable, for life. The court rules on narrow legal grounds. Statutory law is clear. Moral considerations are irrelevant. The effect is devastating. Here is justice inverted. The perpetrator's family rewarded, the victims ignored. Lina Heydrich will receive this pension every month for the next 26 years, until her death in 1985. She shows no remorse, no acknowledgement that perhaps accepting blood money is morally unconscionable. To her, it's simply what she's owed. Let that sink in. The widow of the man who designed the Holocaust, who chaired Wannsee, who organized mass murderers, receives a comfortable government pension while survivors receive nothing. That's not ancient history. That happened in living memory. Should Nazi widows have received pensions? Comment your honest answer. Subscribe if you want more stories they don't teach in school. With her pension secured, Lina runs a small guest house on Femrin called Imbria Parva. Former SS officers gather there for reunions. Exchanging memories of the good old days, Lina hosts them warmly. The guest house becomes an informal meeting place for unrepentant Nazis. Local authorities know. They do nothing. She raises her 3 children in this environment, surrounded by people who refuse to acknowledge Nazi crimes. Lina marries Finnish theater director Mano Manninen primarily to change her surname from Heydrich to the more anonymous Manninen. The marriage is practical, not romantic. It's a way to move through the world with less scrutiny. Lina publishes her memoir, Leben mit einem Kriegsverbrecher, Life with a War Criminal. The title is sarcastic. She later claims readers misunderstood she meant it as mockery of those who call Reinhard a criminal, not acknowledgement of his guilt. The book portrays their life as normal, domestic, unremarkable except for his professional success. She describes his work as routine administration. Security matters. Paperwork. No mention of Wannsee. No mention of genocide. No acknowledgement of the camps, the murders, the suffering. In interviews, she doubles down, claims she knew nothing about extermination camps, dismisses mass gassings as technically impossible, describes Reinhard as focused on territorial solutions, never extermination. Her denialism is complete. For her children, now adults, this creates impossible complexity. Reinhard Heydrich, the eldest surviving son, handles it differently than his mother. As a child, he's shielded. Lina tells him his father was important, respected, admired. But as Heider grows up, he learns reality. He reads books, studies documents, visits Auschwitz, visits Dachau, sees the gas chambers his father helped design. He comes to a painful understanding. He must separate his father as a private person from his father as a public figure. He knows Reinhard loved his children, showed them affection, was capable of tenderness. He also knows what Reinhard did professionally. The Wannsee Conference, the Einsatzgruppen, the final solution. Both truths coexist. And it's unbearable. Unlike his mother, Heider doesn't deny the Holocaust. But unlike some children of Nazis who publicly repudiate their parents, he doesn't completely disown his father. He exists in the uncomfortable middle. In 2011, that middle position will explode into international controversy when Heider tries to help restore the castle where he grew up. Heider, now 76 years old, contacts the mayor of Penensk, Ben. He offers to help find financing for restoration of the dilapidated castle. He suggests European Union funds. He envisions it becoming a museum, a memorial to Czech resistance. His intentions seem good. He wants to preserve history. Honor victims. The response is explosive. Czech citizens are outraged. Survivors of Lidice, descendants of victims. Czech Jews. The idea that Heydrich's son would involve himself feels like a profound insult, an erasure of suffering. Heider gives interviews trying to explain. He shares what his mother told him, that Reinhard, before dying, expressed hope Germany wouldn't carry out revenge. Critics dismiss it as mythology, desperate family revisionism. The mayor defends Heider, noting he was only 7 when his father died, only 10 when they fled. He argues for separating the son from the father, but many Czechs cannot make that separation. The Heydrich name carries too much weight, too much pain, too much blood. The castle proposal dies. Heider returns to Germany. His gesture rejected. Silke and Marte choose different paths. Silence. They maintain extremely low profiles. No interviews, no public statements, no controversies. They live quietly, perhaps marry, perhaps have families. Even this is uncertain. Public records are scarce. They choose anonymity, the path of least resistance for children of monsters. August 14, 1985. Lina Heydrich dies on Femron at age 74. She dies unrepentant, having spent 40 years defending Reinhard's memory and denying his crimes. Her death passes without major notice, buried quietly, no memorials. For her children, now middle-aged, her death means freedom to construct their own relationship with history, though by then their views are largely formed. Here's what most people miss about the Heydrich children's story. It's not about individual guilt. The children didn't commit crimes, they were innocent. It's about something more complex: inherited burden, the weight of a name, the impossibility of escaping your father's shadow when your father designed genocide. Other Nazi children made different choices. Nicholas, Frank's son of Hans Frank, Governor-General of Poland, dedicated his life to condemning his father, wrote books, gave speeches, used his name as a teaching tool about evil. Gudrun Himmler never wavered in defending her father, attended SS reunions until her death in 2018, insisted he was a good man, unjustly vilified. The Heydrich children fell between these extremes, neither loudly defending nor openly condemning, a quiet acceptance mixed with private struggle. This middle position is perhaps the most common response among children of high-ranking Nazis, and the most human. They were children during the regime, innocent of their parents' crimes. Yet they inherited guilt by association, shame, ostracism. They grew up in postwar Germany, a society desperately trying to move forward while grappling with unfathomable past. So here's the question this story leaves you with. What do we owe the children of monsters? Compassion for their impossible inheritance, or judgment for benefiting from atrocity? There's no easy answer. It depends on their actions, their willingness to reckon with truth. The Heydrich children's relative silence suggests they chose self-protection over public reckoning. Understandable, maybe inevitable given their mother's lifelong denial. But it also means they didn't contribute to remembrance, didn't help future generations understand how ordinary people participate in extraordinary evil. They tried to live normally, which itself is a statement about what they believed they owed on to whom. Can children escape their parents' crimes? Comment your answer. Today, the Heydrich name remains one of the most notorious in history. Reinhard is remembered as the architect of the Holocaust, the man who chaired Wannsee, the Butcher of Prague whose death triggered Lidice. His assassination remains legendary, one of only 2 successful Allied operations against top Nazi leadership, and his children remain footnotes to this larger horror. People whose lives were defined by circumstances completely beyond their control. The surviving Heydrich descendants keep low profiles. They haven't sought to rehabilitate Reinhard's name. They haven't become voices for remembrance. They exist in history's shadows, carrying a burden they didn't earn, navigating a world that will always associate their surname with industrial murder. Lina's pension awarded by courts prioritizing legal technicality over morality symbolized post-war justice's failures. While some Nazis faced trials, many were quietly reintegrated. The pensioning of widows whose husbands commanded death camps revealed how incomplete denazification truly was. The Heydrich children grew up in this contradictory world. Their father's crimes simultaneously acknowledged and elided. They were both pariahs and normal citizens. This duality shaped their choices. Their silence, because speaking out risked condemnation. Remaining silent risked complicity accusations. There was no winning move. But the Heydrichs weren't the only Nazi family forced to reckon with monstrous legacies. Rudolf HS Commandant of Auschwitz, the man who oversaw the murder of over 1 million people, also had children. They grew up inside the camp, playing in gardens meters from the gas chambers. Their mother grew vegetables with fertilizer made from human ashes. After the war, those children scattered across the world. Some changed their names, some fled to South America. One became a Catholic priest, trying to atone for sins he didn't commit. Their story reveals something even darker about inherited guilt and the impossible task of living with your father as evil. We're covering that next. You won't believe what happened to the HS children. If this story changed how you think about inherited guilt and historical justice, hit subscribe and turn on notifications right now. Comment where you're watching from and whether you think the Heydrich children should have received their pension. Reinhard Heydrich designed genocide. His children spent their lives in the shadow of that evil, some with denial, some with acknowledgement, all with burden. The question remains, in a world that never forgets, can the children of monsters ever be free? See you next time. History isn't just about perpetrators. It's about everyone touched by their crimes across generations.